Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Balava Girivanadari. Gopijana Balava Girivanadari. Jasodanandanam Brajajana Ranjana. Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Jamuniti Ravanatari. Jamunati Ravanatari. Jeraru Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Balava Girivanadari. Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Jamunati Ravanatari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Dibo. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Mukunda Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Pariba Jagacharya Sita Shishim's Divine Grace of Bhaicharan Bhakti Vedanta Sai Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON BBT Founder Charya Jagaguru Srila Prabhupada Ki. Anantakota Vaishya Vrinda Ki. Nam Char Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem Shri Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadada Shiva Sari Guru Bhakti Vrinda Ki. Say Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki. Vrindavan Dham Ki. Mathura Dham Ki. Dwarka Dham Ki. Navadi Dham Ki. Jagannathpuri Dham Ki. Jamuna Mai Ki. Ganga Mai Ki. Tulsi Maharani Ki. Bhakti Devi Ki. Sambheda Bhakti Vinda Ki. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Say Siddhara Giridhari Ki. Shri Krishna Sankirtana Jaga Ki. Gopremanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to divine Lotus Sita Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Krishna Svadamo Bhagate Dhammaganadi Bisaha Kalandasada Mesha Paranor Kodinodita Narayana Namaskritchandanam Chaivam Narotama Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tatojaya Mudirayat. The Bhagavatam is as brilliant as the sun, is a risen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied with knowledge, religion, etc. Persons who have lost their vision to the dense darkness of the age of Kali should get light out of this Purana. Before beginning our study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, we should first offer respects to the personality of the Godhead Narayan, to the Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, the goddess of living Mother Saraswati, the author Srila Vyasadeva, and my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are on the 5th canto, Teachings of Rsabhadeva, chapter 5, and this is 10 through 13, right? Now, there's a lot packed in this verse. If somebody who ever is giving class Monday or Tuesday wants to go back and have at it, don't be. Is it Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur spoke for a month on the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam? And then he said, at least a month. And then he said, but there's 18,000 slokas, we better move on. So there's certainly someone can speak more in this. Hamse Gora Mai Bhaktyanuvritya Vitrishna Vitrishnaya Dvanva Titikshaya Cha Savatra Jantor Vyasanavagatya Jigyasaya Tapaseha Nivritya. That's all we're going to do. Yeah, that's all that's on the board. Okay. Hamse Guru. I'm trying to think, what is it? Brahma Samhita? Okay, we'll try this one. Hamse Guru Mai Bhaktyanuvritya Vitrishnaya Dvanva Titikshaya Cha Savata Janto Vyasana Bhagatya Jigasaya Tapasaya Nivritya. Hamse Guru Mai Bhaktyānuvritya Vitrishnaya Dvandva Titikshaya Cha Savatta Janto Vyasanavagatya Jigyasaya tapasaha nivritya Hamse Guru Mayi Bhaktyānuvritya Vitrishnaya Dvandva Titikshaya Cha Savatta Janto Vyasanavagatya Jigyasaya tapasaha nivritya Sahamse Gora Mai Bhaktyanantya Vitrishnaya Dvandva Titikshaya Cha Savatta Janto Vyasanavagatya Jigasaya Tapasahe Cha Hamse Guru Mai Bhaktyanuvritya Vitrishnaya Dvandva Titikshaya Cha Savatta Janto Vyasanavagatya Jagyasya Tapasya No. Hamse Guru Mai Bhaktyanuvritya Vitrishnaya Dvandva Titikshaya Cha Savatta Janto Vyasanavagatya Jigyasya Tapasahe Hamse. Who is a Paramahansa, or the most exalted spiritually advanced person? Guru, to the spiritual master. Mayi, unto me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhaktya, by devotional service. Anuvritya, by following. Vitrishnaya, being detached from sense gratification. Dandva, of the dualities of the material world. Titikshaya, by tolerance. Cha, also. Savatra, everywhere. Janto, of the living entity. Vyasana, the miserable conditions. Now, where was I? Miserable conditions of life. But I think I've gone beyond. We got a few more. Vyasana. Avagatya. By realizing. Jigyasaya, by inquiring about the truth. Tapasa, by practice of austerity and penances. Iha nivritya, by giving up the endeavor for sense enjoyment. Okay, now, but we're going to read all the verses because we may not go back to them. O my sons, you should accept a highly elevated Paramahansa, a spiritually advanced spiritual master. In this way, you should place your faith and love in me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You should detest sense gratification and tolerate the dualities of pleasure and pain, which are like the seasonal changes of summer and winter. Try to realize the miserable conditions of the living entities, who are miserable even in the higher planetary systems. Philosophically inquire about the truth, then undergo all kinds of austerities and penances for the sake of devotional service. Give up the endeavor for sense enjoyment and engage in the service of the Lord. Listen to the discussions about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and always associate with devotees. Chant about and glorify the Supreme Lord and look upon everyone equally on the spiritual platform. Give up enmity and subdue anger and lamentation. Abandon identifying the self with the body and the home, and practice reading the revealed scriptures. Live in a secluded place and practice the process by which you can completely control your life air, mind, and senses. Have full faith in the revealed scriptures, the Vedic literatures, and always observe celibacy. Perform your prescribed duties and avoid unnecessary talks. Always think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and acquire knowledge from the right source. Thus, practicing Bhakti Yoga, you will patiently and enthusiastically be elevated in knowledge and will be able to give up the false ego. Purport. In these 4 verses, Rsabhadeva tells his sons how they can be freed from the false identification arising from false ego and material conditions of life. One gradually becomes liberated by practicing as mentioned above. All these prescribed methods enable one to give up the material body, lingam vyapayahet, and be situated in his original spiritual body. First of all, one has to accept a bona fide spiritual master. This is advocated by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Shri Gurur Padashraya. To be freed from the entanglement of material world, one has to approach a spiritual master. Tad vigyanartam sagurum eva bigachet. What is MU? It says MU. What is MU? Something Upanishad, Mukunda Upanishad, that's what it is. Thank you. By questioning the spiritual master and by serving him, one can advance in spiritual life. When one engages in devotional service, naturally the attraction for personal comfort, for eating, sleeping, and dressing is reduced. By associating with the devotees, a spiritual standard is maintained. The word Maddeva Sangat is very important. There are many so-called religions devoted to worship of various demigods, but here, good association means associating with one who simply accepts Krishna as his worshipful deity. Another important item is Dvanda Titiksha. As long as one is situated in the material world, there must be pleasures and pains arising from the material body. We'll get into that in a second. As Krishna advises in the Bhagavad Gita, Tang Satiksha Bharata, one has to learn how to tolerate the temporary pains and pleasures of the material world. One must also be detached from his family and practice celibacy. Sex with one's wife, according to the scriptural injunction, is also accepted as brahmachari celibacy. But illicit sex is opposed to religious principles, and it hampers advancement in spiritual consciousness. Another important word is vigya virajita. Everything should be done very scientifically and consciously. One should be a realized soul. In this way, one can give up the entanglement of material bondage. As Srimad Bhagavatam points out, the sum and substance of these 4 slokas is that one should refrain from acting out of a desire for sense gratification and should instead always engage in the Lord's loving service. We should always remember that Prabhupada's pouring into his purports, all the different Upanishads, all the different acharyas. There's nothing, we don't have to search outside it. Oh, well, what is this interesting little book over here? Prabhupada's put, it's all like rivers flowing out of the Himalayas into the ocean. So that's all flowing into Prabhupada's transcendental consciousness and pours out on the pages of his Bhaktivedanta purports. In other words, Bhakti Yoga is the acknowledged path of liberation. Srila Madhvacharya quotes from the Adhyatma. What is the Adhyatma? Anyone know? Okay. Atmano vihitam karma varjayet vanya karmanaha kamasya cha parityago nirheti ahu uttamaha. One should perform activities only for the benefit of the soul. Any other activity should be given up. When a person is situated in this way, he is said to be desireless. Actually, the living entity cannot be totally desireless. Just as a sidelight, this was a turning point in my spiritual life. Because first off, I was trying to enjoy, and that wasn't working out. So then I was inquiring from the Buddhists, and they were saying, you become desireless. But I remember thinking, hang on a minute, isn't the desire to become desireless a self-centered desire? I said, geez, that seems like an endless loop. And what is it, better to have loved than lost than never to have loved at all? And just to sit as a dull stone with no essentials. Better, maybe you get kicked in the head, but you get a little something along with it rather than just sitting in some kind of frigid isolation. So I was really perplexed what to do. And it's a long story, but I'll spare you. I heard a record, it's Prabhupada's recording, and he's reading from Brahma Samhita. And Prabhupada said, before I ever met the devotees, anything, and Prabhupada said, the devotees have no desire. And I thought, well, okay, but what about, that seems negation. So the Prabhupada said, the devotees have no desire. And then he said, but still they have variegated transcendental desires to satisfy their Lord in loving service. And it just exploded in my mind. I said, there it is. There, because you can't stop desire. You can't, it just, Prabhupada says, even the so-called impersonalists, after some time, what did they do? But even in this life, what did they do? This world is false. Okay, if this world is false, but what do we find them doing other than Dravida? Yeah, philanthropic work. They open hospitals, they open schools. If this world is false, then why are you opening a hospital? Help me out with the seamless logic of that one. Why? It's all false. It's all illusion. It has no reality. Why are you spending your time going to see old ladies and raise money for your hospital? So you can't stop desire, but the desire to channeling it to how to please Krishna. That's the perfection of desire. So in each line in this purport, there's so much packed away. So where were we? Actually, the living entity cannot be totally desireless. But when he denies the benefit of the soul, and when he desires the benefit of the soul and nothing else, he is said to be desireless. Just like when Mukunda Maharaj told me, they're in London, and we've all had this experience. There was a impersonalist yogi who came to Prabhupada's darshan. He'd been visiting the manor, and because no one comes to his program, he was trying to pilfer and pick off a little something from ISKCON. They do it all the time. They're predatory and parasitic, and I said it. So this guy was hanging out and trying to introduce some of the devotees to his impersonalism. Prabhupada says you find many, many impersonalists who become devotees. For Kumaras, there's many, many examples. But there's no example of a realized bhakta who ever becomes an impersonalist. It never happens. So, but anyway, this guy was trying. So he said to Prabhupada, Mukunda Maharaj told me, he said, because Mukunda was the temple president, he said, one who knows doesn't speak. He said, an empty water pot, if you tap it, it makes noise. But a pot that's full of water, you tap it, it makes no noise. In other words, one who's full of knowledge doesn't speak. Prabhupada leaned back, just like soft, underhand, pitch, and Prabhupada's just going to knock it right out of the park. Prabhupada said, so don't you believe that everyone should practice their philosophy, whatever their belief system is, they should practice it. The man said, definitely. How can you say no to a question like that? Otherwise, you're just a hypocrite. Okay, yes, I agree. And Prabhupada said, well, your philosophy is that you should not speak. Our philosophy is that real speaking begins when you speak about Krishna. So you be quiet and we'll speak about Krishna. And you just, Mukund Maharaj, you just watch the guy's gears. You know, he had nothing else he could say, you know. So there it is. That we finished. Spiritual knowledge is jnana vijnana, samanvitam. When one is fully equipped with jnana and vijnana, he's perfect. Jnana means one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be the Supreme Being. We meet people all the time. They say, I pray to God. I pray to God. Am I supposed to be impressed by that? Oh, very good. Job done. I pray to God. What is it? If someone says to you, which they say all the time, you know, and you have to do it in a way that they don't take offense and punch you in the nose. Prabhupada said the proof of preaching is the person takes it. But when you get, especially you get some pious Indian who has a superficial understanding and says, I pray to God, what is your answer? Well, I pray to Krishna, I pray to Narayan, I pray to Vishnu, I pray to Ram. So they got that base covered. That you can also ask, what are you praying for? Om Jaya Jagadishari, give me a new car and a house by the sea. And before we laugh at the Hindus, the Christians are saying, God, give me this day our daily bread. The Muslims are looking for their, you know, how many, 7 virgins or whatever it is. So it's all the same psychology. But what did you say, Prakash? What are you doing for him? That's love. What is he? Prabhupada's classic example. If I say, get me a glass of water, you say, Jai Swami. Hey, look, I'm really thirsty. Can you give me a glass of water? Jai Swami. You heard me. You know, the what is it? The stirrup and the drum and the anvil. What are the different bones in the? They all vibrated. You got the sound. You got a picture of a glass of water in your head. Swami wants water. But we don't get off our asana and do anything about it. Well, what is that? So here Prabhupada's making, okay, fine, good, you need jnana, but when one is fully equipped with jnana and vijnana, he is perfect. Because Prabhupada said vijnana means actualize, you perform activity. Well, here he says, jnana means one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu to be the Supreme Being. Vijnana refers to activities that liberate one from the ignorance of material existence. When you engage your senses in the service of the Lord, when your desires are how to please Krishna. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.31, Jnanam param guhyam me yad vijnanam samanvitam. Knowledge of the Supreme Lord is very confidential, and the supreme knowledge by which one understands him furthers the liberation of all living entities. This knowledge is vijnana. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo vedi tattvata tyakva dehar punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving this body, take his birth again in the material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Om Agnanate Marandasya Gyanagana Salakaya Jakshushun Militan Gena Tasmade Shri Gurave Namaha. So, this is a heavy chapter. I'm thinking of the leader of the Turkish Yatra, Nshinga. I've forgotten the last part of his name. And he was a very, very nice devotee. And, you know, it's a Muslim country. He's Turkish. And he said he thought he was a good Muslim. You know, he said his prayers and, you know, was it 5 times a day? Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, and he went to the mosque on Friday they go. I think it's Friday they go. And, you know, he gave in charity. He'd even been to Mecca. He was like checking all the boxes. He said, but every time he read Prabhupada's books, every time he opened it, you know, it's like, you know those pop-up books? You know, and then you open it up and there's a picture of whatever it is. He said every day the fist came out, boom, punched him in the nose. Press, What about meeting? Boom, boom, What about this? Boom, boom, So he said, but it was like, what is it? They say, Prabhupada made in New Vrindavan, we're way off the track, but we'll get back. In New Vrindavan, they have a lot of crab apples. It's a small little apple. What do you do with these things, But Prabhupada, you don't waste the thing. Prabhupada had him chop them up, and he made crab apple chutney, pickle. And Kirtananda asked, how hot should it be? Prabhupada said it should be so hot that your eyes water at arm's distance. And then Prabhupada said, but you should cook it in such a way that the top of your head sweats, but your tongue doesn't burn. And somehow or other, when you took the New Vrindavan, this is 1971, I guess, cooked by, that's exactly what happened. Your top of your head would sweat, but your tongue wasn't burnt, And what is it we used to say about chutney? Too hot to handle, too sweet to resist. There's an art to the thing. So how did we get off on that? So this chapter is very heavy. Oh, so that was it. Punched in the nose. But he kept opening Prabhupada's books because there was so much, it was true. And as he applied it to his life, he could, his vision was becoming clear, he was becoming happy, and he was feeling the presence of God. He was actually understanding, it's not just vague, but it's real. So it was sweet, but it was similarly, he was being battered, so to speak. Bhaktivedanta purports battering. So this is a heavy chapter. And how do we process it? So I'm going to spend a little time underscoring some of the heavy part. And so what do we do about it? And you get this. What is the time? Jeez. That you were here when Mahavishnu Swami, the Indian Mahavishnu Swami, such a saintly person. And you have to understand, he was elderly. Of course, now we're all elderly, but he was 70 plus, if not older, and frail on, when you get old, you get, as Giriraj Maharaj says, like a toothpaste with all the toothpaste tube with all the toothpaste squeezed out. Over time, all the prana is squeezed out. It's a very accurate analogy. So, elderly and apparently frail, but man, could he punch. So we were at a home program. I won't mention they're very nice devotees, and they've come a long way since. And so Vishnu Swami was doing his job, and this one member of the congregation, an Indian gentleman, could have been any ethnicity, but he was Indian, and he said, you Hare Krishna people, when you come to our house, you're coming to our house, we're cooking a feast, we're giving you some dakshin, and you just punch us in the nose. You give us such a hard, why don't you ever encourage us? You're householders, you're doing nicely, you're helping support the temple, and everything's great. Why don't you just, that's what he was saying basically. Why don't you just pat us on the back and thank us instead of every time you come out here, you criticize us. And he was a strong guy. He was a leader and it's not our Darnidar and Narendrabhai, none of those guys. But he was a leader of the Gujarati community, and we had a big crowd. It was definitely a challenge. Like, hey, buddy, back off. And elderly, saintly, apparently fragile Mahavishnu Swami leaned back, and he said, if there's a dead rat in your room, smelling up your room, do I tell you throw it outside, or do I tell you perfume it? And the way he said it, it was a punch right back. Because the fact of the matter is, you have to get it out of your life. What is it? You got a dead rat? Who here, if you have a dead rat in your room, sorry for the extreme example, but do you just perfume it? What do you think, Kunj Bihari? I'll give you a nice big bottle of eau de cologne or whatever it is. Ode day rat. Ode day rodent. Is that going to do the job for you? No, you just throw the thing out and the problem's solved. So we have so many dying rats in our heart. You know, lust, greed, anger, envy. We can go down, the 6, whatever they are. And so do I tell you just pamper it? No, you got to pull it out. Prabhupada's classic, what's Prabhupada's classic example about what to do? Well, there's so many classic examples. What one springs in your mind? Okay, do I just pamper it? Ah, exactly. Do you just blow? I remember saying that to my mom, no, just, just put ice on it, No, you got to lance it, So, with that as a setup of Rsabhadeva, we were asking yesterday, and Balaram gave a nice answer, but I was thinking about it during the day, that if we just, look, I'll just enjoy, and eventually I'll burn out, and I'll hit a saturation point, and I'll come to the point of being renounced. Or sooner or later, what is it, was it Saint Anthony? Saint Augustine? Who said, give me celibacy, just not yet? I think it's a Saint Augustine said that. So, hey, I'm young. Prahlad, the students said to Prahlad, oh, Prahlad, let us play now. When we get older, we'll take up, when I'm just before death. Of course, what does Prabhupada point out when someone says just before death? What does Prabhupada say? Yeah, anybody got a certificate from Yamaraj? Who here's got a guarantee? So forget that just before death. But the point I wanted to make is that what we need to get through, certainly speaking for myself, through my thick head, is that sense gratification breeds suffering. It's not a free skate. There's no free lunch in the universe. It's not that, well, I'll enjoy and then, I'll get that all under my belt and then I'll dodge out and I'll take up spiritual life. But we suffer it is just like every action has an equal and opposite reaction. It's like a law of physics. As much as you try to enjoy, it's going to bounce back. You throw the ball down with a certain velocity, it comes back with a certain velocity. Everything has an equal and opposite reaction. So when we try to enjoy, what is woven into that experience? What's coming? Suffering. The camel, I was thinking of, I've seen some camels do some really stupid things, but we don't have time for that. They are not the brightest in the animal kingdom, the camel. So the camel, he likes, it's an acacia tree. Acacia tree has thorns on it. And they like it. I've seen it. And they chew the acacia tree, and it's the leaves mixed with what? Its own blood is very tasty. The only problem is they've got all these cuts in their mouth. So they think, okay, well, I'll wait till the cuts get better, and then I'll come back and then I'll chew an unenjoyed. What's the problem? What is the connection the camel is not making, other than Dravida and Vijay and Balaram? What is the connection? The camel enjoys the taste, but his mouth hurts. And he concludes that, okay, I'll wait till my mouth is cured, and then I'll come back and have this tasty snack. Now, what has the camel not put together? That very thing that he thinks is giving him pleasure is simultaneously setting him up for pain. And that's just the way it is. Sorry, Prabhus. Not Van Gogh, who's the guy? Gauguin. He was a banker. He was, in Paris, on Financial Street. He was right there. He was in the upper echelons of society. And he got it in his head foolish rascal, that I'm just going to kick off all these conventions and I'm going to go and enjoy. And what did he treat? Sex. That was his thing. So he kicked off French society. He went to Tahiti and had absolutely as much sex as possible. He was an animal with everyone, especially young girls. You know how he died? Addicted to morphine, suffering from syphilis, with open sores all over his body. Miserable, miserable, miserable condition. Couldn't even walk. The painter, Gauguin, you know? So, I mean, that's an, excuse me, that's an extreme example. But the, could be cancer. There I go. You never know. So, the Blake, who was another one of these guys, the English poet Blake, who was another one of Bohemian, you know, they call them Bohemians, which just means just let it all go. Forget all the stops, forget all the social norms, and just go full bore for sense gratification. So Blake referred to religion, the priest he was meeting, Christianity. He said, men in black simply muttering no. So here we find Rsabhadeva, hey, don't do this, don't do that. You know, austerity and celibacy and tapasya. Wow. Whack, whack, whack. But what's the motivation? They're telling you the truth. Listen, if you're a camel and you keep chewing that, and you're going to suffer. And you'll never see the truth because there was a guy, you can ask, what's the time? You can ask Vaikuntha Prabhu. He visits us sometime, you know, and he and I used to travel together a lot in the painting business to support our families and support the temple. And I met this guy, was the most agitated, sensually agitated person I ever met. It was in Qatar. Yeah, Qatar, which is an Arabian, you know, I think it has the highest per capita income in the world. Tons of money, at least in those days. So this guy was some minister for this and that, you know. And he had 3 Rolls Royces in his driveway. He had 4 wives. You know, he had a huge, you know, this was one house. He had another house. They're all in the desert. I mean, geez, get out of that place. But it's where, what is it? Desert is where people who are killers of Brahmins take birth. So, you know, but he had his 4 different mansions full of all different wives, and, you know. And this guy was so agitated. I was talking to him in his office, and his office had a glass wall. You know, you could see out into the rest of the office. You could see people walking by. And he literally had, what do they call it, a wall eye? I mean, sorry about it. He had one eye that went this way and one eye that went that way. And he was watching the girls walking down, you know, in front of the glass, and he was looking at his secretary. And he was bouncing his leg. This guy was, I said, hey. Oh, okay. He came back. I literally had to clap my hands and say, hey, come back. Hey, I'm here. You know, hey, focus, my friend, you know, as much as he could. So, I mean, he was the, you know, if you look up agitated senses, this guy's picture is there in the Oxford, you know. So, but the point I'm trying to make is this is the business of the sadhus. It's not that they're condescending or they're hard-hearted or they're men in black muttering no. They understand it's the protam and otam of this world. Woven into it is adibautic, adidaivik, adiatmak, is suffering. And we're all like that camel chewing the thorns. Nobody gets out alive. There's no free lunch. Everybody pays. And sooner or later, what is it? The wheel of justice turns slowly but grinds infinitely fine. Everybody gets it in due course. So, therefore, be intelligent. So, and we'll end here, but because there's other things to say, but I'll just say this. Yeah, I guess I should. What to do? This can be discouraging. When I read all of these things, and on one hand, Prabhupada has, I guess I'll say this. It's a very tough measure to actually do all of these things. And especially in the age of Kali, where everything is diminished. Our ability to concentrate, our ability to be merciful, our ability, our intelligence. Can't even remember our own phone number. I mean, you know. So what to do? What is the, I mean, how to ask the question without giving the answer? Kali Yuga is the densest and darkest of ages. Everybody else with a brain has already gotten out. That's just the facts. We are the bottom of the barrel. You are all great souls who took birth to serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Me, I'm at the bottom of the, everybody else got off the merry-go-round. But I'm still going around looking for the exit. So, what is it in this age? What to do in this fallen, heavy, materialistic age? What do we do? Are we just left with this huge wall to jump over? All these qualifications that you need. It says here, without this jnana and vijnana, you're not going to get pure devotional service and get out of this world. Well, I might as well just toss in the game right now. Like Camus, what is it? You know, it's not a question of what to do. It's whether how to do it, whether to commit suicide. No, just how to do it. And he drove his car into a bridge, didn't he? It was not an accident. Well, there's different stories. But the point is, so how do we get out of this endless loop without the qualifications? Somebody help me out. Other than Dravida, other than Ravi. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes, the most merciful. In this age, just all we have to, it's like, you know, they say, I'm trying to help you, so I bent over backwards. I mean, what more can Krishna do? Do you have a mouth? Okay, open it and say Hare Krishna. And when you get tired, stick in some prasadam. So out comes Hare Krishna, in goes prasadam. Is that how can you make it, how could it be easier? Everyone likes to chant and dance. At Laguna Beach, Festival of India, I was serving out prasadam. Two young boys, means what, 10 and 12, they were brothers. Prabhupada said young boys are always hungry. It's true. You could wake them up in the middle of the night, they're hungry. We had a guy, his name was Everett. We called him Ever Eat. And I asked him, I said, is there anywhere that you can't eat? The guy was eating all the time. He said, nope. I said, what about the shower? I thought I had it. You can't eat in the shower. You know what his answer was? Apples. Think about it. You could eat an, I mean, cleanliness aside, you could eat an apple in the shower. Nice and crisp, you know? And and the thing that surprised me was he'd actually thought about it. He actually had an answer, you know? Didn't hesitate for a moment. I said, Everett, you can't eat in the shower. Apples. I say, this guy's got a point, you know? So, what was I going to say? So young boys are already happy, always hungry. These two boys, hey, they're at the beach, you know, free food, and it looks good, you know, it smells fantastic. It's nothing like prasadam. Nice bright colors and fragrant smells, and, you know, wow. They were in line, right? So, you know, I'll take a little extra. So I was loading up their plates, and their mother swooped in like a hawk, you know, in between me and the boys and the prasadam. Don't take that. So I said, oh, you know, okay, you know, you're their mother. I'm not going to get in between, you know, you and your children. I said, but can I ask you why? She says, I know about you guys. You don't watch television. You know, you don't go to the movies. She said, you don't have any girlfriends. He said, and look at you. She said, you're all happy. She said, you must be on drugs. That was her conclusion, that because she looked at the devotees, the devotees were all chanting and dancing. You know, devotees naturally are bright-faced. So I said to her, I said, did you ever, she didn't say intoxication, that we don't take, she didn't know that we didn't take intoxication. But you could see that we were renounced, and yet we were happy. And it just didn't compute. So I said to her, I said, Madam, did you ever think that the reason we're happy, because she could see, and it was one of those golden moments, you look out, you know, it's a Laguna Beach by the lifeguard tower, and it was all set up a tent, and you look out, and all the devotees are just having a great time, you know, it's sweet, distributing books, or chanting, or taking prasadam. So I said, Madam, did you ever think that the reason we're happy is because we don't do those things? And she was smart. She said, you know, I'd never thought of it like that. I said, no, we don't take an intoxicant. We don't, you know. She said, all right, and she took a plate too, so it had a happy ending. You know, the boys were happy, she was happy. But the point is that we should, it is a high bar. It is a rough task. And what to do? We should appreciate how kind Krishna is that he's come as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and give us the Sankirtan movement. And we should see how expertly Prabhupada has crafted it. We don't have to, you know, Prabhupada says, you know, we'll go back to Godhead by taking gulab jamans. I mean, that's pretty far out when you think about it. And that's how the senses become controlled. So we'll end there, but yes, this is what do they call it, a high-demand religion? That's what they call us. We're a high-demand religion, you know? We're not for wimps. We're all in. We're serious. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I promise I'll end here. Catholic school, when I showed up for the program, I saw that, I swear it was in Detroit, and the name was Holy Name, Church of the Holy Name. I said, well, this is going to be fun. I said, this is, you know, talk about a hint, you know, what to talk about. So after, I think it was the third or fourth class, you know, you talk to the kids and you ask them questions. We're off the track, but one of the kids said, this is the first time I ever got a good answer. The nuns got a little nervous. You know, because how do you explain, if there's only one life and there's no previous determining factors, how is someone born blind and someone with sight? How is someone rich? How is someone poor? It's just capricious, just a roll of the dice. Well, too bad. I needed a few blind people, so hey, sorry, you were third in line. And your number came. How does it work? You know, unless there's karma, unless there's reincarnation, it doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, there's so many ways. So we were talking, and kids were asking great questions. But anyway, third or fourth class, this old nun in the back, you know, and I offer my respect. She was trying to hold on. You know, she was trying to practice seriously, you know. So she's waving her hand, waving her hand. So I said, oh, geez, I wanted to call on the kids, but okay, fine. I finally took her. She was going to blow a gasket. She said, tell them about your mortifications of the flesh. Tell them about your mortifications of the flesh. And I was saying, what? You know, because they, you know, they have, in their austerities, you know, they whip themselves so they can feel the pain of Christ, you know, and then they wear those, you know, you got to give them credit. On one hand, they wear mohair, or what is it, camel hairs, so it's sackcloth. So it's scratchy. And if you see, you can go up here. I went with my kids one time with this Juanipero Serra, who started the mission system in California, killed all the Indians. That's another thing. But you see where he slept? It was it was a stone shelf. You can see where the guy, that's where he got that Shakti. That guy was austere. It's a little cubby hole where he's living, you know, living on a stone shelf. Good for him. But so that's what she's mortification of the flesh. What in the world is she talking about? And then I realized she was talking about the four regulative principles. Now, they don't practice sex, but they're just, if you're not, there's a famous, who was it? Merton. Is that his name? Thomas Merton. Thomas Merton wrote a poem. He's a famous Christian mystic. And in the poem, he's talking about how, you know, how he's satisfied with jnana, with knowledge. And, you know, that God is in the great force and seeing God in everyone. It's a very nice poem. And he's explaining all of that. But at the last line he says, but how I long to hear your footstep and your knock upon my door. That, okay, this impersonalism is all right, but I want to see you. I want to know you. I want to be face to face, you know? It's actually nice. So they're just trying to hang on with austerity. But, you know, for us, who wants to go back to canned stew or beef, you know, or it's like chewing on an old shoe, chewing a steak, I'll take prasadam any day, So we can end there. We should appreciate the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how we can accomplish all of these, we can check all these boxes given by Maharaj Rsabhadeva, and how it's perfectly fulfilled by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, and how Prabhupada even fine-tuned it and created our ISKCON, that we can fulfill all the requirements of given here by Rsabhadeva, and it's sweet, sweet, can't be beat. What more can we ask for? So we'll end there. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.